Welcome to Ask a Therapist. I'm Michelle. I am a licensed therapist with 15 years mental health therapist to talk about mental health, parenting. My apologies if anyone was on the live earlier. On my end, and I restarted. Apologize about that. But thank you for being here. And if you have any questions about mental health, parenting, or relationships, so today I'm going to be talking to you about butterflies. Well, kinda. So why would a therapist want to talk to you about butterflies? Well, because they are a huge metaphor for the change process. They really like something called liminal grief, which doesn't get a lot of recognition, but a lot of people I've noticed are talking about it without necessarily knowing the name for it. So you can learn more about liminal grief in my weekly post that I published this past Saturday. That would have been the Saturday the 9th, I believe. Yes. Saturday the 9th, titled Liminal Grief. You will learn more about that, but we'll also be talking about it together. To start, it's been a while since I drew a card for my audience, so I wanted to do that with you today. I chose the Rethink affirmation cards for mindful life and daily actions today. And it was beautiful. I actually kind of laughed when I pulled it because I'm like, oh, well, of course I chose this card. So the card I chose out of a huge deck was embracing change. So it says, I welcome change with open arms and see it as an opportunity for growth and transformation. I adapt easily to new situations and trust that change leads me to greater possibilities. So, yeah, I mean, obviously that's perfect as we're talking today about the grief that arises with change. I mean, it's just beautiful. So, again, if you have any questions, and it doesn't have to be about mental health, relationships, parenting, I mean, I'll answer for you in our messages, and I'll keep an eye out for them. All right. So, a little bit more about my background. Like I said, I've been a mental health therapist for about 15 years. I have now developed a course that begins on June 1st. To learn more about that, it's called the 5-Year Plan. I'm really excited for it. Like I said, it starts on June 1st, so you still have a couple of weeks to get registered to participate with that. And I mean, it walks through the change process as well, really being able to release what holds us back, figure out our authentic self, our goals, and develop a vision, develop a really solid plan for the next 5 years, and then ways that will increase the likelihood that you're going to follow through with that plan. So again, check that out at hopepiecetogether.com. That's my website, and it's called The 5-Year Plan. But we'll jump into liminal grief because I'm not seeing any questions right now. So we are going to talk about butterflies. We're going to start there. So there's basically 4 stages of a caterpillar's life. So it starts off in the egg stage. It's a little egg, and then it moves to and grows to be a caterpillar. So the caterpillar goes through its life pretty much eating whatever it can, and caterpillars tend to eat a lot. And then when it's ready, it trusts its instincts and it forms its chrysalis or its cocoon. So it spins that protective covering where it allows transformation to occur from. And during that process, it sounds like a pretty messy process. So the caterpillar dissolves into a form of goo. It's like a pretty slimy, just like liquid that it dissolves into. And through that goo, the wings form, the antenna form, the parts of the butterfly form, and then it breaks out of its chrysalis or cocoon and becomes this beautiful flying butterfly. So butterflies really are the ideal metaphor for transformation. So what we're going to focus on today is the process, the step where the caterpillar has to trust the universe that is going to be safe in the cocoon, in the chrysalis. Imagine that you're just called to weave this protective covering, and I'm not sure they have the self-awareness or not, that they're going to completely lose themselves. The form they know, the life they know as a caterpillar is going to literally and completely dissolve. So when we go through transformations, we have very similar feelings to the caterpillar. It's scary, it's frightening to think about leaving behind what's familiar for us. So change can be really scary, which can trigger us to resist any form of change or transformation. And this loss that's involved with change is called liminal grief. So if you feel that loss, that pain of letting go of old jobs, old identities, old roles that we had, maybe even, letting go of loved ones, certain places, cities, whatever we're changing, we let go of the old, what doesn't serve us anymore. And it can be really scary because our future in new places is unknown. We don't know what's going to happen and what change is going to bring us. So growth and grief are intertwined. Just like I talked about, the caterpillar transforms in a butterfly. We have to let go of the old versions of ourselves. So letting go is hard, and it tends to be based in attachments. So we have attachments to people, places, things. Some people even have a hard time, letting go of personal belongings. Their house becomes cluttered, their space becomes cluttered, because it can be really hard to let go. So attachments can become anchors. They tether us to our comfort zones. We have that resistance. Maybe that comes out in the form of excuses where, we talk about we have all of these things going on in our life right now. So change is impossible. We can't move to a new city because of this, this, and this. We can't move to a new house because of this, this, and this. We can't quit this job to get something more aligned with us or that maybe brings us more income because of this, this, and this. What that truly is an kind of outside protective shell that prevents us from experiencing the discomfort of loss. Like it shields us. It's like a shield. So those words, that resistance becomes a shield preventing us from moving forward. So one of the reasons that this happens is, so the brain basically mistakes transformation as fear, and so it triggers the fight or flight response. The fight or flight response is more complicated than just fight or flight. It's technically fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. So fight is, literally you could become aggressive, angry, literally fight. You can flight, which is running away. You can freeze, which is kind of the deer in the headlights. Like you can't move, you're just shocked. You're just standing there frozen. And the fawn is kind of a people-pleasing sort of response to trauma or stress where you kind of people please, and it's a trauma response. So unfortunately, like I said, the brain, the body misinterprets change as something to fear, that is something dangerous. And so it triggers that fight or flight response, which then triggers like that resistance to change. That said, change does result in loss. We can have several losses as a result of change, like loss of what was familiar, loss of pieces of our identity, a loss of sense of control, a loss of our routines. Maybe we had a favorite gym that we went to every day for 10 years. And then that gym, you're going to move to a new city, so you're going to have to find a new gym. You're going to have to find a new doctor. Lots of new things. So we are letting go of the old. We're letting go of roles that we used to hold dearly. Maybe it was a title at a job. Maybe it's a role of being a daughter or a mother. And those roles shifted and changed. Like when we become an empty nester, our child leaves the house and our role as a parent shifts and change. And when we let go of one career, one job to do something different, we let go of the old. We've talked about letting go of locations and letting go of the familiarity of the city you've lived in for a long time. Maybe we even let go of relationships. Maybe we're in the process of getting a divorce. And all of that, not only does it trigger the fight or flight response, but it also ignites a grief process. So we grieve those losses. And then in order to move forward, we have to work through that grief. So there are some steps that we can do to manage the grief, the loss that comes with change. So first of all, we want to acknowledge and name that what we lost is real. So we want to name what we lost. We may have lost a favorite restaurant, a favorite park to go and hang out with, or at, a favorite hiking trail, a favorite lake, whatever. We may have to name that place that we're letting go of. We can name the career that we're letting go of. We may be letting go of being a nurse, letting go of being a doctor, letting go of our role as a student, as a banker. Whatever we're letting go of, we want to name that. We can name a routine that we're letting go of. We can name even a feeling of safety that we're letting go of. We're going to be brave and courageous to step into the unknown. What maybe is unpredictable. We're not fully sure we're going to like this new space or this new chapter of our life. Sometimes we don't even know what the next chapter of our life is going to look like. Sometimes, like the caterpillar, we just trust our instincts when something's telling us that we need to move or something needs to change. We just trust the universe and surrender to the universe that things are going to turn out for our highest good. So the first step, like I said, is just to name those things. And then we give ourselves time and space to feel those emotions. We can honor those emotions, name those emotions. We might feel maybe even devastated, afraid, nervous, apprehensive. We might feel courageous and brave to step into the unknown. But we definitely want to reflect on those emotions, name them, and allow ourselves to feel them instead of suppressing our emotions. So then next, we've embraced change, like our affirmation card said. And then we can start to develop new patterns, establish new routines that reflect this new version of ourselves. So, if we've moved to a new city, we can get ourselves into a new gym, get a new routine for going to the gym. We can find a new favorite hangout place that everybody gets together at to hang out. Basically find new activities, new patterns that we can do to fill the space from what we let go of. When we let go of things, it creates space. Like if you think about cleaning out a closet, organizing a closet, as we let go of things that we don't need anymore, whether it's clothing or items we were storing, when we let go of those things, all of a sudden now we have more space that we can fill with whatever we choose to fill. So we can choose to fill that space from releasing what we let go of with whatever we desire to fill it with. So when we move forward, like the caterpillar that trusts the process and moves forward, when we allow ourselves to transform, we let go of the resistance. We, in our own way, become the beautiful butterfly. We grow wings, we spread our wings, we fly. We become our authentic self, our highest self, a better version of ourself that really invites more different and potentially better opportunities into our lives. So it's hard. I mean, it's hard to let go of who we were. The high school student or college student who was full of dreams, the athlete who was determined, dedicated, pushing their limits, a devoted spouse, a dedicated employee. It's hard to let go of those previous versions of ourselves. But when we do so, we get to open a new chapter that can definitely be beautiful and allow us the opportunity to fly. So when liminal grief happens, again, we honor those emotions, we name the loss, and we create new routines and welcome them into our lives. And then we embrace change, all the new opportunities and new beginnings that come with that. All right. Well, that's what I have for you guys today. I'll give you an opportunity to put some questions in our chat. It could be about liminal grief. It might be the first time that that's named for you. Maybe it resonated with you, kind of whatever you want to share, or you can ask other questions that aren't related to liminal grief about anything with mental health, relationships, parenting, or anything else that's kind of in those broader categories. So I'll give you some space to ask some questions. I'm keeping an eye on the chat. Yeah, a lot of people, change is one of those things, and there's even a saying about this that it's really the only thing we can count on. We're constantly in a state of change, even when we have stability in our life. We're constantly changing, growing. We get older every day. We gain some wisdom. We shift beliefs, perspectives. So, change is one of those things that we can count on. I just don't think that we do a good job in our society to talk about the transformation process. And like I said, the butterfly is really a beautiful metaphor. I can't think of a better metaphor for really the transformation process. It really just embodies the fear, the trust, the instincts that we have to be able to navigate change, especially larger changes and bigger transformations. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, so I will go ahead and start wrapping up. Just as a reminder, I have my course, the 5-year plan, that helps us to create positive change in our life. That launches on June 1st. You can learn more about that at hopepeacetogether.com. Otherwise, feel free to check out my weekly post on liminal grief that I wrote on Saturday the 9th. I tend to post weekly posts, so feel free to subscribe to my Substack and receive those in your inboxes. All right, thanks so much for being here, and I will talk to you next time. I am sending you peace and hope until I see you then. Bye.